So you're doing your research, you're planning your big move to Austin, Texas, and you're wondering, why wouldn't I live there? What do I not know? Well, having been from Austin, Texas, and having lived elsewhere and then coming back, I'm gonna be going over 15 things that might turn you off. And if you don't like those, you might not wanna move to Austin. So if you wanna know these 15 things that may drive you crazy, stay tuned. Hey again, everybody. This is Frank. I'm part of a team at the award-winning J.B. Goodwin Brokerage right here in Austin, Texas. If this is your first time to the channel and you're wanting to know what it's like to work, eat, sleep, live, breathe, play, and the 15 reasons you may not want to move to Austin, Texas, tap the subscribe button and ring the little bell so you're notified every time we put out a new video. We are literally getting phone calls, texts, emails every day from people moving and relocating here to Austin, and we absolutely love it. If you are moving or relocating anywhere in the Austin area, make sure you give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email. Days, nights, weekends, it doesn't matter. We've got your back when moving to Austin, Texas. All right, I've made a physical list, I've made a mental list from my own experience, from my friends' experiences, from my family's experiences, and from our clients' experiences of things that you just might not like or that might turn you off when you're gonna be living in Austin, Texas. And I'm gonna be honest, brutally honest perhaps. I'm gonna give you the good, the bad, and the ugly. Not gonna really sugarcoat anything. I'm telling you now, stick around for number 15 at the very end. I feel personally that it's important to keep in mind. One of the bigger reasons people just might not like living here. So you're gonna wanna stay tuned for that one at the very end. So number one, I'm gonna start with the obvious, something I've talked about in a few of our other videos, just get it out of the way, and that's the weather. It's hot here, to be quite honest with you. Yes, Texas is known for being a hot state, but a lot of people might not realize just how hot it really gets. In terms of the summertime, it's really all you have to look out for. I'd say a bulk of the year is gonna be in the 70s and 80s, maybe the 90s, maybe the 60s, it all depends of course, but it's quite beautiful most of the time. But once you get to May, June, July, and August, you're gonna see triple digits, and they're quite intense triple digits as well, given the fact that our air here is a little bit more dense, it's a little bit more moist. Now, thankfully, we're not extremely humid either, but we're not exactly dry. So 100 degrees here might feel completely different than 100 degrees, say, in Phoenix or in Los Angeles. But it's also not gonna feel quite as bad as 100 degrees, say, in Houston or in Florida or Hawaii. I, for one, I've gone on the record saying this, I cannot stand the heat. I've learned to live with it, yes, because my life is here in Austin. I'm quite happy here. But I'm someone who needs temperatures between, let's say, 55 and 75. Once it gets above 80, I just start perspiring like all hell. It's not a good look. So for me, those summer months are pretty brutal. It can really feel like an oven. You know when you open the oven when you're baking something and that heat just slaps you just right in the face? That's what it's like to step outside here on a mid-July day. I mean, it's 102, 105, even if it's in the 90s, the type of air here, the dense air, especially if it's coming from the south, is gonna make 95 feel like 105. It's just the way it is here. So thankfully, yeah, it's just a few of those summer months that you have to stay inside if you're me. Crank your AC, run up your bill, or if you have a dog like me, I have a little corgi, I love him to death, but I dread those summer walks, whether it's a fear of his paws getting burned or a fear of me just coming back absolutely drenched after about 20-30 minutes, or even having to wait until nighttime to walk him. It's always in the back of your head. I'm always checking my weather app to see, okay, has it gone at least below 100 degrees? Sometimes that'll happen at 6 or 7 at night where it's finally cooling off, the pavement's finally cooling off. And also other little things that you might not think about. Like if you're like most people and you have a car and you park it outside, you open your door and you can actually see the heat leaving the car. You see, it's like a mirage. It's just like coming out of your car. You get inside, and if you have leather seats, that'll burn you. If you put your hands on the steering wheel, ooh, that might burn you. You gotta turn on the car for a little bit at the beginning, crank your AC, roll down your windows, let the heat ventilate out of your car, cool it off just to be a little bit more comfortable in the heat. Things like that you just might not think about if you've spent much of your life in a state where it just doesn't get that hot. Something to keep in mind if you're going to be living here in Austin. But as I said, once you get to September all the way through probably April, it's nice. Winters oftentimes can be in the 60s or maybe the 40s or 50s. My favorite time of year would be that November, December period where it gets below 60s and it's nice and cool. You can stop wearing flops, you can dress the way you want to dress. And so yeah, we see a lot of people coming here to Austin to escape the harsh winters that they've had to grow accustomed to in whatever state they're from. But the flip side to that is you're going to experience a summer quite unlike whatever summers you're used to where you come from. So is it bearable? Yes. Does it suck? Hell yes. But just a few of those months of the year, it's good to keep in mind, especially if you're anything like me. All right, so number 2, which is not really a humongous problem, but it depends on who you are, so I thought I'd mention it, and that would be the bugs. Now for some people, bugs, no big deal. For other people, bugs, very big deal, which is why I thought to bring it up. Now, thankfully, we don't have horrific problems with roaches or anything like that, but you're gonna see your fire ants here, you're gonna see wasps, you're gonna see bees, you're gonna see hornets, humongous ones too. I mean, they come into where I live and they like to press themselves against the glass at the window, against the blinds right in that little crevice space there. And they're so gigantic, they're just banging because of course they're drawn to the sunlight, they're thinking that they're trying to get outside, and you can hear it. It really just, it's like a loud thumping sound almost because they're just bouncing against the glass. And then you pull back the blinds to see which bug it is, and it's just a gigantic hornet or a gigantic wasp. Just really mean looking suckers. And they always seem to be bigger than you think, right? I mean, in your mind, you know what a wasp and a hornet looks like, but when you see it, I mean, especially the ones here, I'm talking bigger than a $50, just easily, just humongous. They have depth. It's like they lift weights or something. In my experience, it's not something exactly that you need like pest control for or anything crazy like that. In my life, I've needed help with ants before. That has been a problem. I've had to buy those little traps, those little ant houses, little white things where they just go inside to die. I feel like a jerk. But the ants can be a big deal here depending on, which areas you live in. And worse than all the other things I mentioned are going to be the mosquitoes. And thankfully mosquitoes are not year-long, so don't freak out. But you do have them in those warmer months where, say, the high of the day was 95, 105, and then at nighttime it gets to maybe 85 or 75 and it's still warm and the air is still a little bit humid. You might go outside to let your dog out, you might go outside to have a beer, you might go outside to just relax, and you'll find yourself getting bitten up all over the place. And that's pretty normal here. But again, you see those really in those summer months. But as soon as it starts to cool down outside, they screw off. They go away, and I do a little happy dance every time. And I'm someone personally who I like to save as many insects as I can. I'm not into really killing. If I see a wasp or a bee or a hornet, I try and open the door and just kind of like use my magical powers to guide them out of the house, right? But if it's a mosquito, you're dying immediately. And I'm someone who, I buy my gels, I prepare for it, my little ointments, sprays, even candles that repel mosquitoes, you name it. That's something to keep in mind here. Now, if you're someone who just doesn't care, you won't care. But if you are someone who's not used to really seeing those around, I'm not saying it happens necessarily in excess, but it's something to be aware of if you're going to be living here. Moving on to number 3, and this one is more of a reminder for people, the subject of cannabis here in Texas. Whether we're speaking medicinally, whether we're speaking recreationally, it is completely illegal here in Texas. And I'm not just bringing this up for the people who like to get stoned, and do it for fun, although if that applies to you, take what I'm saying at heart, but I'm speaking more to the people who rely on it medicinally. If you're coming from a state where it has been legalized for some time and you're used to living your life a certain way, if it helps you sleep, if it helps with your depression, if it helps with your anxiety, or if you're like my oldest brother who has epilepsy and has some horrific seizures that I've had to see, and you're using cannabis treatments for the seizures or for other symptoms of that nature, you need to be aware that it's not legal here. It's not easy to come by. We've looked into getting treatment for my older brother so he can get off of these pharmaceutical medications that, yes, they do help, but they have these horrible side effects that harm the body. So not to ramble too much, but I'm trying to think of those people as well. And if you do it for fun, party's over, but at the time of this video in 2021, I know things are moving fast, but it's still completely illegal here. So just keep that in mind if you're gonna be living here and it has been a part of your daily life for whatever reason. And I shoot these videos in a dark room with a bright ring light to illuminate my face, and so I swear half the time I make these videos I feel stoned because I'm always looking at the camera like that. All right, so for number 4, this is a big one in my opinion. We're gonna talk about property taxes. In so many of our videos I make it a point to bring up the subject of property taxes because a lot of people moving to Texas, they get excited about the fact that we have no state income tax. Yes, that is true. Yes, that's a beautiful thing. And yes, it balances out. But property taxes are what really sneak up on people who just might not be expecting them when they come. In our experience helping clients relocate here from other states, we've heard numbers as low as 1%, which is amazing to hear. But here in Texas, you're gonna see them starting around 2%. It's very common to see them around 2.4, 2.5, even some areas as high as 3%. So if you have a $300,000, $400,000 house, you might be paying $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 or more, maybe a little less, a year just on property taxes. So it is a blessing that we have no state income tax, and that's why a lot of companies are moving here to Austin. It's why it's booming the way it is. But the stickler is the property taxes, and I just really want people to be aware of that, to not be blindsided by it, and just to plan for that. When you're coming to live here, it's not a deal breaker in our experience, but it does catch a lot of people off guard. And that's something that we pride ourselves in doing. We're not claiming to lower the property tax rate for you or anything like that, but what we do like is just helping people find the right areas with the right tax rates, the right commutes, all that jazz, and make your life just a little bit easier. But yeah, I consider that a reason not to move here for a lot of people. They might enjoy just paying 1% every year on their property taxes and not having to deal with double or triple that. But if you are coming here, I'm not necessarily trying to talk you out of it. This is more of a beware video. And yes, beware of the property taxes. I will say it till I die. Now, before we move on, real quick, drop a comment down below. Let me know if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. If you have questions, I'd love to get involved with you guys. And be sure to hit the like button as well if we're providing value to you. It really helps the channel grow and tells us we're doing a good job. Moving right along to number 5, and that would be the growth here. Now, in most cases, growth would be considered a good thing, right? Not a reason to beware of moving or living here in Austin, Texas. But if you're someone who wants solitude, if you're someone who wants a nice, peaceful, tranquil lifestyle, unless you're going to the greater Austin area, and you're looking at the metro area, you're looking at central Austin, even North Austin with all these new companies coming and the way it's booming and expanding, it just might not be for you. It's becoming more populated, traffic is getting worse. But the good thing is that the further north in Austin you go, because it is a city that expands more north, you're gonna find acres if you wanna build your house on a lot. You're gonna find quiet suburban areas, great for raising families, great school districts, all of that good stuff. We do have that here, but if you are considering moving to Austin, more in the hub, just be prepared for how booming it really is. People tend to think of Texas as this peaceful, quiet, southern state without too much pep in its step compared to other places, but Austin really, in the past 10 years especially, has just rapidly grown. Traffic in my lifetime here has increased exponentially, and it will continue. And that's just something to keep in mind as well. If you're either coming to the heart of it or anywhere remotely central to the city, it's absolutely poppin'. And that might be for you, but I wanted to bring it up just in case it's not. All right, number 6 is going to be public transportation. And I bring up public transportation because here in Austin, at least, it leaves quite a bit to be desired. It's something I've talked about in other videos that we've made, and I'm bringing it up here again as a reason not to move. If you're used to relying on public transportation wherever you're coming from, we do have it here. Yes, we have the buses, we have the Metro Rail, which is really cool, but it's not gonna be quite like anything you're used to if you're coming, say, from San Francisco or LA or one of these cities that just has it as part of its infrastructure. Especially the more north you go here in Austin, Texas, when you go into suburbia and things get more spread out, more quiet, more easygoing, you're pretty much out of luck when it comes to public transportation. You're gonna need a car. Texas is very big. Austin, of course, is very big as well. Perhaps not at Houston's level or anything that major, but it's still big. And look, to get from point A to point B can be quite a hassle because it takes time to get from here to there. So you're gonna need a car, and unless you're gonna be living in the heart of downtown Austin, I would not rely on public transportation as a means to get around. And that harmoniously ties us into number 7, which is going to be the size of Austin, really the size of Texas in general. Unless you're going to be living right at the heart of the metro downtown area, it's going to take time to get from point A to point B here. It's so spread out, which is nice, right? It's not clustered together. It doesn't feel dense and loud. And I spent some time in LA and that was enough of that, right? So I enjoy that about Austin, but you need a car, and the walkability, especially once you leave the downtown area and you go more north into the suburbs, say Cedar Park, for example. Yeah, there's sidewalks, yeah, there's bike trails, yeah, there's ways to get around, but it's not made for that. It's not designed for that. If you want to get from point A to point B, again, it could take you 10, 15, 30 minutes in a state like Texas, in a city like Austin. So, and with Texas being the largest state in the country, most people who come here from out of state just aren't quite used to that. They might think they know what to expect, but really the size can take you by surprise. And so yeah, if you're someone who uses public transportation or who likes to walk places or likes to cycle places, and that's just your way of life, and you don't plan on buying a car, that's one of the reasons I would beware of living in Austin, Texas for sure. It's something I love about Austin and the state of Texas, but it is something that you need to keep in mind if you're going to be living here and you're not quite used to it. Moving right along, I'm actually going to bunch numbers 8 and 9 together, and this is a PSA for all vegans and vegetarians. Texas is a state, culturally, that loves its meats. Whether it's endless grills to go eat at, endless barbecue places to go eat at, whether it's great meat prices at the grocery store, whether it's just grilling with people socially in your backyard, it's a big part of the culture here. And I'm not saying that we don't have anything to offer for vegans and vegetarians, of course not. Austin is a very progressive city. It feels like every day, there's a new place opening up downtown or in that central Austin area that does cater to that type of lifestyle. But just be aware of it. If you're coming from a city where for years it's been the norm to have a healthy lifestyle, to have a holistic lifestyle, to have an abundance of options that cater to either your diet or your lifestyle, it's not non-existent here. I won't say that, but Texas there's a lot of pride here. There's just a lot of love for the meats, We do have our Whole Foods, we do have our Trader Joe's, we do have our 365, which is in association with Whole Foods and Amazon, but you're gonna find that more central to the city as you would expect. We have them here and there popping up in the northern parts of Austin, but really, unless you're gonna be living more central, more downtown where it is a progressive vibe, you just might not find it that frequently the further north you go. We are on our way, I'll say that, we're on our way, but it's not quite the norm yet, at least here in Texas. We tend to take our time getting around to the trends of the rest of the country. And just for the record, number 8 was the culture of meats, and number 9 was the alternative shopping options that you want for a healthier lifestyle. Just so we're staying on track. So moving right along to number 10, that's going to be the diversity here. And I'm sure many of you are thinking to yourselves right now, who the hell doesn't like diversity? You'd be surprised. They might not say it openly or publicly, but some people just want what they've known their whole lives, and Austin is the #1 city for relocation in the country. What does that mean? We are a melting pot for all different types of people. Now, for me personally, it's a beautiful thing. I love getting to know people from all different walks of life, different cultures, but some people might want things to be the way they've been. I'm not in a position to judge. I'm speaking to everyone here. Austin is a diverse place. Even the more north you go, even if you leave the downtown area and you go into the suburbs, the greater Austin area, you will find still all types of people. So again, if you're someone who might just be a little old-fashioned, or you like things the way they are, the way they have been, you want people to be like you, Austin might not be the place for you. Just keeping it real. And on the note of people here, number 11, we're friendly. Now, why is that a bad thing? Well, depends on who you ask. But in our experience, a lot of people here, a lot of them specifically from the Northeast, are people who like to stay to themselves. They don't like to strike up conversations with strangers. It doesn't mean they're rude. It doesn't mean they're mean. They're just not that type of people. They're used to a certain culture. They're used to a certain lifestyle of just, I'm in my own lane. I'm going where I'm going to go. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. I'm not going to talk to anyone. They mind their own business. I mind mine. I'm happy that way. That's great. Texas is not like that, at least for the most part. Here, it's normal for people to wave, to say, hey, how's your day going? Hey, how you doing? Hey, I'm having a cookout tonight. Hey, I'm having a party tonight. But yeah, relatively and generally speaking, the drivers are friendly here. The people are friendly here. it's the friendly place to be. It's right on our sign when you're entering the state, drive friendly, the Texas way. So I'm putting it as a list of reasons not to move here, just to be aware of. If you are someone who is more introverted, more used to living a certain way, you might be thrown off by people who are just, to you, seeming abnormally friendly. But hey, it is the Texan way. I remember I spent a year in Los Angeles and I had lived here all my life, so of course I'm out there, and at the time I was much younger and I was working a job at Starbucks, and I remember my customer service, I'd always say, "My pleasure," or "Hey, how are you today?" And of course Starbucks encourages that. Any company you work for encourages you to be friendly and warm and give people proper customer service. But I remember getting looks from my coworkers, getting looks from my managers, getting looks from even the customers who just kind of like, what? I remember getting asked a few times, "Did you ever work at Chick-fil-A?" No. But they always say, "My pleasure," and so did I, and it was just natural. I was raised with certain manners and I grew up in a certain culture that was just very warm and gracious and helpful, and I kid you not, the looks I got, and even the coworkers that came up to me, "Hey, you don't have to be that nice." I even blatantly, to my face, got asked one time, "Why are you saying my pleasure?" And for me, that was just normal, right? But not everyone everywhere has that Texas warmth, right? And you're gonna experience it a lot when you come here. So if it's not your thing for whatever reason, I'm not judging, just beware. So something I do miss about LA or California or other places in general, which is number 12 on this list, is gonna be the scenery. Now don't get me wrong, Austin is a very pretty place, lots of trees, lots of landscapes for hiking, trails, great places to ride your bikes, you can go canoeing, there's an endless abundance of outdoor activities for you to do here. I'm not trying to crap on the nature or the scenery here, but if you're coming from a state where you're used to beaches and you're used to tall mountains, you're used to tall trees, gorgeous bodies of water, natural beauty that is just indescribable in certain states, whether it's California, Washington, Oregon, Montana. Austin is in Texas, and Texas is flat. Texas used to be mostly farm and ranch. And so yes, we have hills. A lot of our luxury homes like in Westlake are absolutely gorgeous. But again, if you're used to coming from a state that is just gorgeous, your downtown area has mountains behind the skyscrapers, keep in mind, Austin is pretty, but it's not gorgeous. Our scenery, depending on where you're coming from, can leave a bit to be desired, which earns it a spot on these 15 reasons not to move to Austin. Just be aware of that, just keep that in mind. Pretty, but not gorgeous. Good, but not great. All right, moving right along to number 13, that's gonna be the winters here. Now, why do I bring up winters as a reason not to move here when a lot of times it's in the 40s, it's in the 50s, it's 65, the other day we had 75, and that is because every so often we get hit with an abnormally cold winter. This winter season in 2021, we had not one, but 2 snow days. I know, doesn't sound like a lot. For Texans and Austinites, that is a lot. I grew up being used to having snow days once every 5 years, every 7 years. I can remember way back having the occasional day off from school. But yeah, we had snow here. And just to give you a frame of reference, right, it doesn't snow all the time, maybe every 5 to 7 years, like I said, but you do get your sleet, right? You do get your temperatures that drop below freezing sometimes, and there might be an ice warning or a sleet warning or one of these weird occasions where they delay school or they delay work or things like that. But this year, we had it so bad in our definition, just to be clear, that the city actually had to shut down. Now, I'm sure many of you heard of the harsh winters that Texas and other southern states went through this year. It got to the point where most people lost both power and water for several days, and it got pretty serious. Can't shower, can't cook, don't even think about going to work. Everyone had to stay home. The city just absolutely shut down. And it's because for decades on decades on decades, we haven't dealt with that. So the streets aren't built for that. Our bridges aren't built for that. Our homes aren't built for that. And apparently our power plants aren't either. We had a notice to boil any water that we do get. We had to go to our igloos of cars just to charge our phones. Some people's houses got into the 50s or even 40-degree temperatures. There were car wrecks on car wrecks on car wrecks, multiple injuries, fatalities, and so moral of the story, Austin, and more so Texas, cannot handle extreme winters. We just can't. And we get a lot of ridicule from northern states saying, wow, you guys really can't handle the snow. We can't. We've never had to. You know, we don't own snow boots. We don't have snow tires. And our attitude at the time was, okay, well, you guys handle 105, 110 degree weather for consecutive months. Because a lot of houses in other states, they don't come with ACs. Ours do, because we're made for the heat, not the snow. I think it was something like the late 1960s being the last time that Austin or Texas experienced that much snow. So the good thing is that it isn't frequent here, absolutely. We might not see anything like that for years to come. The bad thing is that when it does happen, you're absolutely screwed. So, moving right along, if you stuck around this long, thank you so very much. We're gonna move right along to number 14, and that would be the cost of living here in Austin, Texas. Now, why am I bringing this up? So many people move to Texas all the time because of how affordable it is in comparison to these other states. Well, Austin specifically is the most expensive city to live in Texas. You're better off finding cheaper homes in San Antonio, in Houston, and Dallas than you are in Austin, Texas. With the growth we are experiencing, prices are just going up and up and up and up. Now, fortunately, it still is true. If you're coming here from a state and you have a budget of $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, $800,000, that might be a little bit more middle of the road where you're coming from. Yes, that can still buy you absolute luxury here, amazing location here, size, scenery, golf courses, schools, all of that stuff. Yes, it is still more affordable at the end of the day to live here, but Austin itself is growing more and more expensive. Anything from say $375 to $450 would be considered median now in this market. Now, of course, the further north you get, as Austin expands into these suburbs and newer developments and all of that, you can find more affordable living, but in comparison to other cities in Austin, it is going to be more expensive, just flat out. And for good reason. You know, Austin is now the destination in Texas, just to toot our horns a little bit, but you pay for it. So it's just something to keep in mind. Elon Musk recently, who is coming to Austin bringing all this stuff, 5,000 new jobs, a new factory. He just predicted that Austin's gonna absolutely pop and explode, which it already has a number of times, but apparently it's supposed to do it again. So naturally you'll see the cost of housing, the cost of living in general will start to fluctuate again. Just something to keep in mind if you're gonna be moving or relocating here to Austin, it is gonna be more pricey than basically anywhere else in Texas, which earns it a spot on this list of 15 reasons why not to move to Austin, Texas. Again, just keeping it real. All right, we finally made it to number 15 on this list. Last but certainly not least, worth mentioning in today's climate, and that would be the politics. Now, I am not about to get political, that is not my place, but it's worth mentioning that Texas is a red state. Yes, Austin specifically, downtown area is very liberal, very progressive, and if you're coming from a state or a city that is very blue, you'll feel right at home. But Texas as a whole has been called a sea of red. And yes, I'm aware in the most recent election that it almost flipped and that it is becoming much more blue, and that's very true. As I mentioned before, Texas is growing in diversity, specifically Austin, but you'll still find that a lot of people here in Texas are proud to be Texans. It's very rich in its culture. It's very rich in its history. So a lot of people here, they like their guns. You're gonna see a lot of American flags. You're gonna see some old Trump signs, and even your occasional Confederate flag flying in the breeze on a gigantic truck going 90 on the freeway. It's just part of it here. And if you're not used to that, if you're not expecting that, this is me giving you the heads up. You're gonna see a lot of both here. It is very mixed in my experience, but my main point is that culturally and historically, Texas is just conservative. Now, they're not gonna shove it down your throat. They're not gonna get preachy. They just wanna live the way they wanna live, and they don't want to be messed with, and you're gonna find that a lot here. So is it truly a reason not to move? That's up to you. It's not for me to say. But it is for me to say, beware if that's not your thing. You're gonna see it a lot here. But like I said, on that note, Austin itself is very progressive, it is very liberal, but as soon as you get out of the downtown area, as soon as you get more north, you're gonna see a lot of it mixed, and the further north you go, the further red it gets. I myself, I'm more centrist, I'm more middle of the road. There are things from either side that I agree with, there are things from either side I don't agree with, but I'm not really about choosing sides. I like to treat most everyone with love and respect and acceptance. That's just how I roll. But it's worth bringing up, you know, if your comfort zone is a certain way, you might not find that way here. especially if you're coming from a state like California or cities like Portland or New York. It's not going to be a rude surprise, hopefully, but it'll still be a surprise nonetheless. But this might be a pro for you. As more people move here, which they are, they're voting for different things, which means things are changing. So a lot of people here, they don't like it. A lot of people coming here, they do like it. It just depends on where you are, what walk of life you come from, and where you stand on such topics. And so those are 15 reasons why you may not want to move here. But if you are, and you need to know more, and you've got to find your perfect spot, that's what we're here for. Whether it's the commute to work, whether it's the right schools, whether it's the right neighborhoods, just the right lifestyle in general. That's what we're here to do, to help you find your perfect location. And the only way we can help put you in your favorite spot, you've got to reach out, call us, text us, email us, days, nights, weekends, whenever. We've got your back when moving to Austin, Texas. And until the next video, you guys, we'll catch you later.